Hello, welcome to part 2 of our playing on stage with Ableton tutorial. If you haven't already checked out part 1 of this video, I do highly recommend going and taking a look at all of our pre-steps before we jump into Ableton. But if you think you know all of that stuff already, or you've already watched the video, welcome. In this video, we're going to be setting up a project in order to play on stage using Ableton and the push. Let's just jump right into it. So we're here in this fresh Ableton session, and we're going to start building out our live show. So if you have done all of the pre-work, you should already have a set list in mind. Because I knew that I didn't want to look at my laptop at all through the show, I just wanted to use the push. I've made it so that every song would occupy one page on the push, or 8 scenes along the side here. So you can see where the red box is, exactly where the push is. And if I were to press the octave down button on the push, it's going to take me down to the next set of scenes. So we already know that we're going to have to make a whole bunch more here. But for now, we'll start up in this top section. Why are the numbers not in order? So because we've already set up our set list, we know that the first song that we want to do is in 3/4. If you double click on your scene here, you're going to get this little window down here where you can set a bunch of different information that will change in Ableton when you trigger this scene. So we know that we want the time signature to be 3/4. I'm going to tap and see if I can figure out what I want the tempo to be. It's telling me it's about 96.48, so we're just going to set this to be 96. So now when we trigger this scene, and you can see how it's blue, which means that there are settings there that are going to change when you trigger it, it will automatically change our settings to be 3/4 and 96 tempo. So just for the sake of it, I'm going to trigger it now so you can see. Now it is 3/4 and 96 is our tempo. I'm going to copy those settings all the way down here. I'm also going to rename them so that they are the song that I will be playing. I should have done that in the first place, but that's okay. And there we go. So now we have an entire page dedicated to Loved You First. So having looked at what we need in advance, I know that we're going to have a vocal track, a vocal loop track, guitar, piano, bass, drums. And that is kind of what we can get away with for this particular session. My actual session is a little bit more beefy, but for the sake of this, that's all we're going to need. So I already have a vocal track and a guitar track, but now we're going to hit Control T for an audio track, or Control Shift T for a MIDI track. So we're going to add a track for piano, drums, bass. Now we also know that we're going to need a return track for our vocal loops. So I'm going to right click, hit Insert Return Track, or Control Alt T, and I'm going to rename this track. Now let's throw our instruments on here that we know that we're going to need. I'm also going to go ahead and put our looper plugin on here. If you want more information on how I loop my vocals, there is an entire video on that I will put up on the screen right now, and you can check that out, which will be easier than me re-explaining it currently. Before we go any further, I want to set up our vocal and instrument buses. So as we talked about in the first video, we want to make sure that our live sound tech has as much flexibility as possible to control the mix of our vocals and reverb versus, the bass and drums and guitar in the track. You don't necessarily want your voice to be affected by the same EQ that they're putting on, the lower frequencies that are happening. So by giving them separate tracks and separate outputs, you are providing them with more control instead of just having one master output. So the way that we're going to do that is we're going to create 2 new tracks. I just pressed Control T twice. I'm just going to drag them over to the end here. I'm going to name this one Instrument, and I'm going to name this one Vox. And I'm going to send all of these tracks to the instrument. So instead of saying audio to master, I'm going to go audio to instrument. You also want to make sure that you have your audio from set to no input. If it's set to any of your tracks, you're going to end up with phasing and doubling, and you don't want any of that. The last thing you need to do is set your audio to external out, and then pick whichever outputs from your interface you want to send each track to. This allows the sound engineer to have a little bit more control over the mix. You can also send a whole bunch of these if you want separate ones for guitar, bass, drums, however many you're comfortable with or however many your interface can manage. Now that our session is pretty much ready to go, it's time to start adding our loops. Even though I know I want to play piano while I'm on stage, I'm also going to record piano tracks now for two reasons. One, if I do happen to make a mistake on stage, I want to have a couple of backup clips that I know have all the right notes and all the right timing so that I'm not stuck with something subpar or feeling like I need to redo it while I am live on stage. It's easy enough to just click on the next clip. The other thing is that watching someone duplicate clips on stage is not interesting to the audience, and there's so much room for error. I know that for myself, I often accidentally duplicate scenes, and I definitely don't want that happening while I'm on stage and screwing up the organization of my entire project. So I'm going to record some of the piano now, as well as the bass and the drums and a guitar track, and then leave room for myself to create another clip while I'm live on stage. So for now, let's just get some tracks in. So now we have the tracks that we're going to be working with for this particular song. Something else that I'm going to do is create another audio track. I'm going to call this track Vocal Loops. So if I have loops that I'm not going to be recording on stage, I want to make sure that my vocal looper is open for me to have the loops that I'm going to do live. So I'm going to go into the vocal loop plugin. I'm going to listen to this that says drag me, and I'm gonna drag this into Vox Loops. Keep in mind, we've done no mixing at this point. I've turned volumes down a little bit on some things. I've turned reverb up a little bit on other things. This is all just raw. Special aside, I can see a bunch of foxes playing outside my window, and it's magic. So now we have a very kind of basic version of this song, and we're going to organize it so that when I'm on stage, I know that I can just hit these scene buttons along the side and have the song kind of sound the way that I want it to. So this is a very full version of the song, and it's not necessarily the version that I'm going to want the entire time. So I'm going to take this guitar track and I'm going to copy paste it. You could also hit duplicate and do this on the push because the guitar is pretty much the same the entire time, but I'm going to leave myself space up at the top here, and I'll explain why in a minute. I'm going to do the same thing for piano. I'm going to put piano here and here, do the same with bass, drums. I'm actually just going to move down here, and I'm going to copy this vocal loop so that it can be so a little something like that. This is me planning to build my song from top to bottom so that when we reach the final chorus, we've got this big section ready to go. I'm leaving space up top here because this is where I would record live on stage. With this track set up, let's take a really quick look at what a next track could look like. On the push, I'm gonna hit octave down, which is gonna take me to an entirely fresh page. This was great when I was on stage because I didn't have to worry about, overwriting anything. I knew, because I have my set list on a little piece of paper on the floor, I knew exactly which song I was at based on just being able to navigate up and down with the octave key. This song is in 4/4, so we're gonna go back over to our scenes here. Double click, I'm gonna change our time signature to be back to 4/4. Something else while I'm here, I always leave empty space around as well so that before I start the song, I can trigger this scene just to make sure that my tempo is correct, my time signature is correct before I actually get into playing the song or before I trigger any instruments. All it's gonna do is start the click in my headphones. No one else is gonna really know that I've done anything. I'm going to rename this and then I'm going to copy paste an entire window's worth, so 8 of these tracks. This track is pretty similar to the last one, except that I do actually know that I want to be playing drums on stage. However, I want to have 2 different drum rhythms. So one of them I'm going to prepare in advance, and the other one I can kind of trust that I'll be able to do it live on stage. Let me start setting this up and I will show you what that looks like. That's the basics for this song. Let's organize it in here. I know that I want to play all of these instruments while I'm live on stage, which means I need to make sure that I'm leaving enough room and that I know exactly how I want the song to build. In this case, what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna copy all of these tracks to create the way the song should look, and then I'll erase the ones that I don't need so that I know where I need to insert those tracks when I'm actually playing live. Okay, so it looks a little something like this. I've left space here because I know that that's where I want my drum track to go when I'm actually playing it live on stage. And then I know that I'm going to record this on stage, boop. I'm gonna record this on stage, that can go, and I'm gonna record this on stage, so that can go. This is a little bit of a memorization trick. If you have another way that you would rather do it, that's fine. I just practiced and knew exactly that I needed to fill this square, and this square, and this square. So it's not as clean as it was for Loved You First, but it still works just fine. So that's the general idea of how I set up for playing live. You can just continue to go down and copy all of your scenes so that on the push, you can just boop down into the next one and you know that you're immediately in the next song and you're ready to go. So for the last part of this video, I'm going to play through Loved You First as though I am on stage. So I'm going to prepare my tracks. I know that I'm going to record a guitar track, so there's room here. This is kind of my backup emergency track, and I'm going to record a piano track that is going to go here. All right, here's Loved You First. Loved you first. Maybe that's where the problem starts. And it still hurts, knowing I was barely in your heart. And I've watched you grow. Oh, I've watched you grow from a distance. And now I know there was no way to resist this.
so far just to leave it all behind. So get in your car and pretend that you were never mine. All this is why I shouldn't love you first. And I could have never let you go. And I would have held on and watched the world burn. There was never a love behind your eyes, and this is why. This is why. I shouldn't love you.
So there you go. That is kind of a really quick, rough version of how I would play that song on stage. You may have noticed that I played guitar through a bunch of that song. So I left this row open here so that I could trigger it on my push. It would still have the metronome in my ears so that I know that I'm still in time. And it gave me the opportunity to play the bridge kind of on my own, and then also to end the song at my own pace. And so that's it. We've come to the end of this video. This is a really quick way of me explaining how it is that I've managed to play live. There may or may not be a part 3 to this video if you guys are interested in seeing what my actual live set looks like on my laptop. I thought I would have time to put it into this video, but the video is probably already way longer than it really needs to be. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave it in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. My name is Alana Maddie, and I will see you next time. I'm gonna start with piano, and I know it's a struggle today, y'all. We're doing this whole section over again. Yay.